Religious fanatics, super cool edgy millennials, and frustrated locals. We're not talking about spring break in Panama City. This is Far Cry New Dawn. Far Cry New Dawn is a 2019 first-person open-world shooter developed and published by Ubisoft, or Ubisoft, depending where you're from, I guess. This is a direct sequel to last year's Far Cry 5. When the reveal trailer came out for this, a lot of people were either really happy or really pissed off. On one hand, you had more Far Cry, which a lot of people love. On the other hand, you had what looked like a lazy asset flip. So Far Cry New Dawn sees you returning to Hope County, Montana, but this time you are the captain. Last time, as the main protagonist, you played a rookie deputy from the local sheriff's department. But this time there's a twist. It turns out Father Joseph Seed was right. Yes, the father actually knew what he was talking about in Far Cry 5. So everyone knows the ending of Far Cry 5 by now, whether they liked it or not. There was a nuclear attack on the United States of America. Everybody from Hope County went into their bunkers and just waited out the apocalypse for about 15 years. Fast forward a few years later and they're starting to make a local community happen once again. This, of course, being a post-apocalyptic world means that peace cannot last too long, because wherever there is an apocalypse, there will always be raiders ready to take advantage. And that's exactly what the Highwaymen, led by the homicidal twins named Mickey and Lou, have brought forth onto Hope County. So it's up to you, the captain, and your friends to take them out and make Hope County peaceful once again. So when I talk about games, I'll talk about the good, the bad, and I'll give you my score. That being said, let's get to that Far Cry New Dawn goodness. One thing I love in a good game, movie, or TV show is a time jump. I think if they're done right, they are a great narrative or plot device. You get to see how somebody was, you get to see how they are now, and if they're done right, they kind of go back and forth between now, what happened before, and that spot that you missed in the middle. And there can be some pretty satisfying stuff there. So going back to Hope County and seeing all of these old places replaced with natural degradation or having them repurposed by the Highwaymen is really cool. And seeing what happened with the characters from Far Cry 5 all the way up until Far Cry New Dawn was pretty great as well. I also enjoyed the new friendly characters that you come across in the game. They add a lot of personality and humor to the story. And that's one of the things I love about the Far Cry franchise is they tend to have this really weird mix of these really hardcore, mature themes coupled with really weird humor and characters and stories. And that's one of the things that sets the franchise apart. When I saw the trailer, I wasn't sure how Mickey and Lou would be as the villains. But I ended up liking them. I like their personalities. They are a little bit generic, but they come off as genuine due to the acting. They both have a bit different style, physically and behaviorally. Sure, they're not Vaz. No one is ever going to be as good as Vaz, but they were a good addition to the Far Cry universe. Something else that's always great in Far Cry is the gunplay. In this game, it's even better. It's visceral, it's smooth, the sound, the feedback, the animations all make it feel that way. A lot of people are really talking about how much they love the blade launcher, and I did like it. I liked shooting those blades, hitting people, and they go down, especially when it's bouncing around corners or from one person to another and you take out 2 or 3 people at once. That's really cool. But the firearms I enjoyed the most were the simple but powerful conventional weapons, as they were faster. They didn't have that widespread thing that the blades did. They were more direct and you could really just shit up with them. I also really love driving around the world. Speeding down a road and then running over bad guys or running over animals. And I'll be honest, the random occasional pedestrian who got in the way, and I just couldn't be bothered to steer around them. There's something cathartic about the gameplay loop of Far Cry. When you've had a long day at work or whatever, and then you come home and you go and you just run people over with your car. You have these great gunfights, you do these outposts, and now these other type of missions, which I'll talk about. It's just really fun and it just feels good, and it's a great stress reliever. The new RPG elements have a great natural progression if you play the game like you should. They also add a little fun, variety, and challenge to the outpost system. So just like in all the other Far Cry games, there are outposts that you have to take. You have to go in and kill all the enemies, try not to set off the alarms, and you can do that with stealth. You can do that just running and gunning. You can do that with your guns for hire helping you. There's a lot of ways to do it, and it's really great. It's really fun, and it's something that no other series really does quite as well. But the thing that was really cool about it this time is Once you clear an outpost, you can go ahead and salvage it, take the resources from it, and then leave. And then when you leave, the highwaymen will come back, but they'll be tougher this time. But you can do it 3 or 4 times till it gets stocked up with fully epic and legendary enemies, which can be difficult if you make a mistake while you're trying to stealth those outposts. The crafting system, the perk system, and the leveling up of prosperity, your home base, all has tangible effects on your character and their performance. Unlike in Red Dead Redemption 2, where when you do something for your camp, it doesn't really do much for your character or for the game as a whole. It's kind of just busy work, where in this game, you actually get stronger, you get faster, you get better weapons, you get more ammo, etc. I love the fact that there are random encounters in the world between different animals or animals and people as you roam around the condensed Hope County. So you'll go out, be doing a mission with one of your guns for hire, and you just happen to look over, and way over on like the side of a mountain or near the river, there's 2 different kinds of animals fighting. Or you see a mountain lion hunting some deer. So it feels like a living, breathing world. Speaking of the guns for hire, I really like the different characters that you can play with in this game. There's such a difference in their personality, the way that they move, the way that they act, their different talents. It really affects how you run around the world. It affects how you run missions. That's, of course, if you're using them properly. My favorite was the light machine gun toting potty mouth Gina. Yes, everyone's going to say Herc was their favorite, and Herc is funny. But I like Gina more because she's more aggressive, more violent, she's potty mouth, and she says a lot of things about your personality and about the way you play the game. The new aesthetic elements brought in by the nuclear disaster and by the highwaymen do help give a bit of a different feel to Far Cry New Dawn over Far Cry 5. The game is pretty. It just has really nice graphics. They run smooth. I didn't have any frame rate drops, anything like that. The new mission types called expeditions are really great. You go to an abandoned amusement park, you go to a aircraft carrier, you go to a destroyed bridge. There's a lot of places you go. They have a lot of variety. And just like the outposts, every time you beat them and go back, you have tougher enemies to face, but bigger rewards. Now, I didn't do the expeditions until after I completed the campaign because I really wanted to concentrate on them and see how they were, separate from the main game. But earlier on in the game, had I known what I know now, I definitely would have unlocked the ability to take these expeditions so that I can get that better loot and upgrade my guns a bit faster. There's a decent variety of enemies trying to kill you, whether they be the different highwayman types or the different animals around the map. There are quite a few great memorable missions throughout the game, whether it be through the side quests or from the main story. Another bonus in this one over Far Cry 5 is you don't get kidnapped about every 2 hours. When you run into the twins and the highwaymen, it feels like it's more a natural part of the story than it did in Far Cry 5. I really love the sound design in the game. I love the score. I love the great directional audio. There's a lot of really good effects when you're in different areas, echoes or a hollow sound. Everything is really tuned to what the environment is around you. One of the things people were really afraid of was the grind and the microtransactions, especially with Ubisoft putting them in nearly every game they do now. But it's very possible to get all the upgrades for your base, your guns, your character, without having to do any kind of microtransactions or use real money. Some people are complaining about the length, but really it just depends on your playstyle. The game can be pretty quick or it can be lengthy depending on how you play. If you fast travel, do you do the side quests, do you power through the main story? There's a lot of factors that determine how long this game is going to be for you. For me, it was 2.5 days playtime. I really like all the pink and the blue. It's just fun, it looks cool, and it fits because it matches with the main antagonists. A lot of people didn't realize as they were playing the game, one of the guns for hire is actually the deputy, the rookie from Far Cry 5. And that's the judge, the guy that wears the mask and never talks and is really badass, and he's probably one of the best guns for hire. The game really gets fun once you unlock these perks from Eden's Gate. You get a double jump, you get to do like this invisible stealth thing like a thermoptic camouflage like the Predator. You also get this rage thing where you can punch the hell out of people and they go flying across the map. Those are really fun and they add a lot to the dynamic, to the mechanics of the combat, and even your traversal of the map. Basically, if you love Far Cry games, you're gonna love this game. So that's the stuff I really enjoyed in this game, but let's get to that Far Cry New Dawn badness. As pretty as the graphics are, as steady as the frame rate was and all that for me, one thing you will notice is pop-up. Whether you're playing on console or PC, it's not nearly as bad as in a lot of other open world games or games like Earthfall, but the pop-up is still pretty noticeable. I would have loved to have seen a few more unique and memorable story missions throughout the game. It would have added a bit more to it, and I think it probably would have helped with the reviews a lot more. Sometimes the game felt a little cheap. It felt like it was cheating. Like at one point I was in one of the outposts. There was only one alarm left. Somebody knew I was there. There were only like 2 guys left. I was watching the alarm and there was no one who got there and it just went off. Nobody actually got there to activate the switch, yet the alarm was sounded and reinforcements came. That was pretty cheap. If you are an impatient person and you just like to rush through the game, you might feel like this is a bit of a grind, especially with the progression system and the RPG elements and all that are in this new iteration. And when you're in the outpost, you're also going to notice that the AI isn't the brightest. It's not really dumb like in Anthem, but it's not really smart like it is in Fear. They definitely should have made it feel more desperate, more desolate. It would have gave it a more post-apocalyptic Mad Max feel. But I do appreciate the difference and the way that they were trying to set themselves apart from other games, either that are out already or that are coming out. A few of my friends actually complained about the abilities that you get from Eden's Gate, those perks like the double jump and the rage where you can punch people really far, punch their helmets off or whatever. They say that they're not realistic and they're not conducive to like the Far Cry narrative or whatever. They obviously never played Far Cry 1 because that came out a long time ago, but in Far Cry 1 you had similar abilities, except instead of it being for like religious reasons or whatever, it was scientific experimentation. Even the story stuff with your friendly characters, your allies in the game, I don't think they did enough with them. They could have added a few more story beats or had them do more in the missions with you so that when something serious or something weird happens in the story, it has more gravitas, and it hits you where it counts. It makes you feel something. There was only 1 or 2 moments in the game during the stories, during the cutscenes or whatever, where it made me feel something. The rest of the time I was like, man, if I had gotten a little more time with this person, that would have mattered a lot more to me. And as with many other recent games, talking about hitting you where it counts, the hit detection in this game is really spotty. And this other thing with, the helmets and the bike pads being able to stop explosions or 50 caliber bullets just because they have a higher skill level, even when you have that legendary weapon, that doesn't work, man. They definitely need to tweak that a little bit. And the writers and the production designers definitely could have been a bit more original with some of the elements, but definitely a lot of the lines that people quote in the game. Some of them, if you know anything about movies or shows, they just blanket rip off stuff. They don't try to disguise it. I mean, I guess it works because the game's supposed to have kind of a cheeseball feel. Outside of those really memorable, unique missions for the characters or through the main story, a lot of these other side quests were, I wouldn't say fetch quests, but they definitely could have used a little more variety. They weren't as bad as against, say, like Anthem or many of the other games that came out recently like Crackdown, but they definitely could have thrown a few more in there to add just a little bit more variety. Honestly, I think microtransactions in a single player or co-op game are annoying or frustrating, especially when you paid $30 to $60 for it. So even though you don't have to deal with them that much in this game, depending on your playstyle, of course, there's still no justifying it to me. Now, the end game stuff feels a little disappointing. Now, I know this isn't a games as a service thing. I'm saying the end game as in after you beat the bosses or whatever. People don't say or do much to react to the fact that you did go and you did beat these different people. Some of them even repeated lines from the very beginning of the game, like I had just walked into Prosperity, into my compound for the first time, and I'm looking at them like, what the hell are you talking about? The final bosses are cheap bullet sponges, whether it be the twins or this other thing that happens after. They're also throwing all these other minions at you instead of like really letting you concentrate on them. Even though you're at legendary status and you have these super powerful weapons, they're barely chipping away at them. Meanwhile, they're just destroying your ass. And you're gonna notice something. Sometimes in combat, as smooth and as great as it is, there'll be some weird wonky things that happen, especially in the boss battles. You'll accidentally parachute while you're jumping. You'll accidentally turn on your rage meter when you go to beep the horn. There's a few things that definitely could use some tweaking in the controls. Now, as much as I hate to say it, there were a few glitches in the game. At one point, I was parachuting and I ended up parachuting straight through the world and underneath it. And that was a pretty glaring glitch, and it would have kept just going if I hadn't hit reset. And to be honest, this game kind of felt like an asset flip heavy expansion for Far Cry 5. While $40 is good and is better than them charging full price for the game, $30 would have been more fair, especially given the fact that they laced microtransactions into every aspect of the game. So when this game was announced, you had people who were happy that another Far Cry game was coming out, and then you had people who were pissed off that said this is just an asset flip. Who was right? They both were, to be honest. But there is something to be said about returning to Hope County and seeing all of these changes. It was just a good time. I had a blast playing this game. It wasn't too long. It wasn't too short. Right now, I've been playing so many open world games that I'm really burnt out on them. I'm tired of them. So to be honest, before I even started this game, while I was installing, I was just dreading the grind that I was going to have to go through. But with my playstyle, where I kind of took my time and I experienced the world, there wasn't much of a grind for me. Plus, they say the word all the time in this game. I love when games use mature language. I love cursing in video games. I love when they say and this game uses every derivative of that you can think of. Everything from the classic all the way up to you're gonna die, you mother piece of But all of these changes and the liberal use of the word was not enough to make this a great game. It is great fun, but it is not a great game. They could have done more with the story, they could have done more with the characters, they definitely could have done more with the gore. I mean, you're using a gun that shoots saw blades and no limbs or heads are flying off? What's up with that? That being said, what is my score? Drum roll, please. 7 out of 10.